In 1976, a pair of jazz funk albums emerged from the Big Apple from a band appropriately titled New York Mary, and from the self titled first of those, the track Sunrise. And right there, you are hearing the keyboard work of Allan Zavod, just before he was hired by John Ponte. I like I like that step and a half between those two chords. Dun, dun. Like basically a G something tone and then going up to B flat. And I love that arpeggiated tone of that intro keyboard. It kind of reminds me of that track by Sky Whale that I did a few months ago. Yeah, Epicure. Holding on to that two key that two note like progression, doom 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 doom. Except now they're doing it a lot faster. They're doing like doom 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 doom. They're doing it like in like twos rather than like. Oh no, actually, what the bassist is doing, he's doing fifths. He's doing like firsts and fifths, going doom doom G D G D G G, and then going B flat F doom 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 doom. Yeah, so it's basically the same two chords though that we've been hearing the whole time. I love the cadence of those horns, the way they just kind of like hold it and then kind of like flare up, and then the way they just kind of like wiggle on the. And that persistent, Allan Zavod's persistent, really kind of like arpeggiated line that we heard from the beginning, matched with that really driving, like cymbal laden uh, percussive element. Now, holding the same structure, but with a slightly different a breakup now. Now, Allan Zavod has changed. Now he's doing some soloing under that bass line. That is the bass work of Rick Petrone. Yeah. Wow, this is becoming a real three-man extravaganza between drummer Joe Corsello, Petrone, and Allan Zavod, who's really moving around. I have to say the tones here that Zavod is using are very different from what he would start using later that year, like on Imaginary Voyage with Jean Ponty. And the horn work that we're hearing, let's see, we have got Bruce Johnstone on baritone, alto, and soprano sax, And Donald Hahn plays trumpet on the album. Well, the drummer is just really filling it up, really hitting those snares, and yeah. It's amusing. They just basically held the same two chord structure throughout this, and yet it's just rising in intensity and density. Hear that soprano sax just like wiggle and just scribble. Finally, we're getting some guitar. Oh, hear that squiggly guitar tone, that like. What is that effect? I've heard it on several records from this time period. I think I hear it on Steve Marcus's album from this year. Yeah. Those are the squiggly licks of guitarist Tim Breen. Believe it? It's just the drummer who's filling up all the space. It's down to just some guitar licks and drums, and yet it's as full as any section in the track. Two drummers. No way one guy could be doing all those fills and then be hitting all that metal. God, working the snare and simultaneously keeping all those cymbals just ablaze. Now this is the kind of drum solo that I'll, yeah, that can take up my time. I mean, yeah, I gotta extend a hand for this. This is captivating. This is, he's earned his keep. If anyone in the band, surely, aside from Allan Zavod, surely this guy must have gotten some calls afterward. Let's. Let's see, Joe Corsello. Before this album, he played on Barry Miles' the first album by Barry, or no, he played on Barry Miles' self-titled 1970 album, not his first, because Barry Miles actually put out an album in '61 when he was 14. But I think maybe the first proper album of his like adult era. And let's see, the same year as New York Mary, he appeared on Sophisticated Funk, and funny enough, Discogs has kind of only lists the second New York Mary album under his. Discogs has very scant credit info on this first New York Mary album, for some reason. Recapitulation of that really strong brassy theme. that is quite appropriate. This sounds like like perfect music for the bicentennial celebrations that were going on in the New York Harbor when all those big ships were coming in. Yeah, this is like festivity music. I love the way the rhythm, how the drummer is just working that bass line, how they're playing off one another. It's like the bass is going boom, 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 and then you know, oh now he's going four wallops a bar. New York Mary with sunrise and quite a good bright day of magic and energy you've got ahead when, if a song like that, if that kind of music is meant to embody the day ahead. Yes, on the entry on jazzrocksoul.com for New York Mary says, let's see, an early Arista signing, New York Mary released 2 albums during America's bicentennial year. For New York Mary, let's see, okay, down to this song, Lightning Roads Arpeggios in G beckons sunrise, which crashes between the root and minor third with wailing sax and machine gun drums aplenty. As Corsello pummels throughout, the soloists take turns in the spotlight. Just as having been introduced earlier in the article as trumpeter Donald Hahn, guitarist Tim Breen, keyboardist Allan Zavod, and of course saxist Bruce Johnstone. Just as the Skidman seems to be the last one left on the battlefront, the saxist recapitulates the tune amidst a polka-fied closing propulsion. quite a visual description there, quite a evocative depiction. Let's see. Let's hear another track from the album, Shooby. More of a hard funk this time. Now that's a very different sound for Allan Zavod. That. More of like a Kool in the Gang type groove here. Well, the bass is still getting in some deep licks in there. And the drummer is just, I swear, the great undiscovered, unsung drummer of this time period. I mean, I'm starting to, okay, I'll save that for later. There's a part of me that's thinking that this drummer could give some of the bigwigs of the time period a run for their money. I'm thinking, you know, some of the bands with the top drummers of the period are running through my head right now. You know, Artie and N.Y.C, and the top of the line fusion drummers at stateside at the time period. And to think, I've had people kind of complain about some of the comments I made about Ian Pace a few months ago, And I know that everyone gets, I know that a lot of people get really protective and defensive of the drummers of their favorite bands. Everyone's favorite drummer is the drummer of their favorite band. I don't quite play it that way. I'm very selective about who, like, like Split Ends are one of my favorite bands of all time, but I've never thought of any of their drummers as among the best in the field of drumming. And this isn't necessarily one of my favorite bands of all time, New York Mary, and yet I'm much more I'm feeling it already as far as the drumming goes. I really think it's the drummer who is just pushing is really bringing the best out of all the others in the band. He's really upping the bar and really making them play, really making them interact. And like the bassist is just placing all these notes in choice places. He isn't really he's in the pocket, yet he's wandering around it too. You kind of notice him at times, and if you pay attention, you'll notice that he's like a really like key kind of like active ingredient. But the drummer just keeps throwing in all these fills. The brass guys are doing their best to keep up with it all. That guitar lick we're hearing is fine, but it's just kind of like a cosmetic. It's just kind of like a fill-in. Maybe the key to all great funk is just like, well, it's the synchronicity between the different players, their ability to sense where each person in the band, and oftentimes like a 7 or 8 piece, where each one of them is going at any given moment. That ability to sense it, and then to intuitively put their little fill in to place in a way that fits with each of the other like 6 or 7 players. But I think that the other real active ingredient behind great funk is just a real exceptional rhythm section. Because without that, the horns, the wah-wah guitar, the scratchy riffs and all just wouldn't really hold together. I really like the contrast between Johnstone's tone right here and I believe Hahn's tone in the last solo. The drumming is just like kicking up so much dust. It's just filling up so much space. It's just... And it does feel like a rather lean drum set though, like a pretty small one. It's like he's really working that snare just... breaks. I love how the bassist is so kind of like, oh, he's kind of like staccato, kind of like boom, 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 like. Yeah, this is come to think of it, this is one of the few videos I've done recently where the bassist at no time seems to be just like putting in kind of like sonic thickness at the bottom. He's actually just playing these kind of like staccato notes and not letting them like sustain for very long. It's if anything is filling out the sonic space, it's the drummer. It's all those snare rolls and God, Zavod's tone is getting like so snaky, so kind of crickety. Unison sax. Really tight unison. Okay, sax trumpet. Just ensemble, coming together for the grand finale. That was New York Mary with Shooby from the album New York Mary, their first of two albums released in 1976, and before that the track Sunrise. Let's see, that same entry on jazzrocksoul.com, it says, let's see, wah-filtered clavinet introduces the monochordal Shooby, where Johnson swaps saxes at the four, where Johnson swaps saxes at the four as Corsello tom snare pummels against a wet, scratchy fretboard lick. Huh. That's a lot to unpack right there. I think I read the sentence too fast. I need to go over it. But yeah, wah-filtered clavinet introduces the monochordal Shooby, where Johnson. So yeah, I didn't. That was something I didn't quite make note of at the time. Yeah, it was primarily like in the same key the whole time, I guess. Duh. Yeah. C minor. Yeah, where Johnson swaps saxes at the four as Corsello tom snare pummels against a wet, scratchy fretboard lick. A very succinct way to characterize a lot of musical action. Anyway, yeah, New York Mary, two really action-packed albums in the span of a single year, and then going off to other things. Let's see, where did the other... I guess, let's see. Shortly after recording the first album, Zavod scored a high-profile 4-year gig in John Luke Ponty's backing band. After New York Mary split, Johnson lent his services to clarinetist bandleader Woody Herman. Yeah. Although I'm really hoping that Corsello got as much of his energy out as possible. And, yeah. And he's also credited with, he's credited on, let's see, Benny Goodman and Joyce D. Camillo Trio albums from the 1980s. Yeah. Anyway, for more Rubies and Sapphires from the two New York Mary albums, see the directory of albums from 1976, linked in the description below, for Red Hot Tracks and Purples from this album and the second New York Mary album titled A Piece of the Apple, which came out later in 1976. Yes. Like and subscribe and follow me on social media and leave a comment if there are any observations you have about the two tracks we just heard, the layers, the interplay, the rhythm, the drumming, yeah. Who had the best lick, the best solo, the best fill? Who was the most impressive soloist or instrumentalist overall? And until next time, this is Zaragon, the world's most ear-traveled trimaximalist, signing off.